When people think about weight loss, the conversation almost always turns to calories, how much we eat, how much we burn, and the endless battle between the two. But that entire model is fundamentally flawed. As Dr. Myhill often reminds us, weight gain and fatigue are not problems of willpower or self-control. They are symptoms of an inflamed, damaged gut ecosystem, the very foundation of our metabolism and immune health. When your gut is unwell, the rest of your body simply cannot thrive. Every cell depends on nutrients that must be properly digested and absorbed, and when the gut barrier becomes leaky or inflamed, toxins and undigested food particles escape into the bloodstream. That sparks chronic immune activation, inflammation that interferes with thyroid function, insulin sensitivity, and mitochondrial energy production. The result is the perfect storm: sluggish metabolism, hormonal imbalance, and relentless cravings that sabotage even the most disciplined efforts. The modern gut crisis has been brewing for decades. Overuse of antibiotics wipes out beneficial bacteria. Ultra-processed foods starve the microbiome of fiber and polyphenols. Chronic stress floods the body with cortisol, thinning the gut lining, and sleep deprivation weakens the repair cycles that keep the intestinal wall intact. All of these factors combine to damage the gut ecosystem, the very control center of metabolism, mood, and immunity. This is why diets fail, because the problem isn't a lack of discipline. It's biological dysfunction at the gut level. The path to lasting weight loss begins not with restriction, but with restoration. When you heal the gut microbiome, inflammation subsides, hormones rebalance, and energy returns. In this episode, Dr. Myhill unpacks the science of how repairing your gut is the single most powerful way to reignite your metabolism and achieve sustainable, effortless fat loss. Most people have heard the term leaky gut, but few truly understand what it means or why it's so central to almost every modern health problem. From Dr. Myhill's perspective, leaky gut isn't just a digestive issue. It's a whole body energy crisis that begins deep in the intestinal wall. The gut lining is designed to be selectively permeable. That means it should let in nutrients like amino acids, fatty acids, vitamins, and minerals, but keep out large food proteins, toxins, and microbes. When this barrier breaks down, that selectivity is lost. Suddenly, unwanted substances slip through microscopic gaps between the cells of the gut lining and leak directly into the bloodstream. The immune system interprets these intruders as foreign invaders and launches an attack. This constant immune activation is what drives chronic inflammation, the silent fire that damages tissues and exhausts the body's energy systems. Inflammation itself isn't always bad. It's part of how we heal. But when it becomes chronic, it drains the body's energy reserves and keeps the immune system switched on even when there's no infection to fight. This is the hallmark of leaky gut, the immune system caught in a state of constant alert, producing inflammatory cytokines that travel throughout the body and disrupt virtually every metabolic process. One of the first casualties of this inflammatory cascade is the mitochondria, the tiny powerhouses inside our cells that produce ATP, our energy currency. When inflammation is high, mitochondria go into a defensive mode. They produce less energy and more oxidative stress. Dr. Myhill often describes this as the body running on flat batteries. You feel tired, foggy, and weak, even though you're eating regularly. The body, sensing this energy shortage, slows down metabolism to conserve fuel. This is one of the key reasons why people with chronic gut inflammation struggle with fatigue, weight gain, and hormonal imbalance. The next domino to fall is insulin signaling. Chronic inflammation interferes with the way cells respond to insulin, the hormone responsible for moving glucose from the bloodstream into the cells for energy. When the cells become resistant to insulin's signal, blood sugar levels remain high, prompting the pancreas to produce even more insulin. Elevated insulin not only drives fat storage, especially around the abdomen, but also prevents the body from accessing stored fat for energy. The result is a metabolic trap. You crave more food for quick energy, yet your body refuses to burn fat. What makes this even more damaging is that the gut and brain are constantly communicating through the vagus nerve and through inflammatory messengers called cytokines. When the gut is inflamed, these signals tell the brain that something is wrong. The brain, in turn, shifts the body into a stress state, further elevating cortisol. High cortisol worsens gut permeability, reduces digestive enzyme output, and suppresses beneficial gut bacteria, creating a vicious cycle of inflammation, hormonal disruption, and fatigue. Dr. Myhill often emphasizes that this is why so many people feel stuck. They follow calorie-restricted diets, exercise more, or try detox programs, but nothing truly changes because the underlying inflammation keeps metabolism locked down. The body simply cannot burn fat efficiently when it's inflamed. Energy generation requires healthy mitochondria and efficient hormonal signaling, both of which are impaired by leaky gut. The connection between gut health and body composition becomes even clearer when you look at how the microbiome interacts with the immune system. A healthy microbiome produces short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, which nourish the gut lining and keep inflammation in check. But when bad bacteria dominate, they release endotoxins such as lipopolysaccharides, so LPS that damage the gut barrier and flood the bloodstream with inflammatory triggers. Elevated LPS levels have been directly linked to insulin resistance, obesity, and metabolic syndrome. This process is known as metabolic endotoxemia, essentially an inflamed gut driving a sluggish metabolism. This is why Dr. Myhill calls the gut the seat of all inflammation. Every aspect of your health, from brain clarity to energy, from hormonal balance to fat metabolism, depends on the integrity of your gut lining and the diversity of your microbiome. When the gut leaks, everything downstream suffers. Healing begins when you restore that barrier, calm the immune system, and feed the right microbes. Only then can the mitochondria recover, insulin sensitivity return, and fat burning reignite. What appears on the outside, stubborn weight gain, low energy, mood swings, is simply a reflection of what's happening deep inside the gut wall. Inside your gut lives an astonishing ecosystem, trillions of microbes working together to keep your metabolism, immune system, and hormones in balance. Far from being passive passengers, these microbes act as an intelligent control center that determines how efficiently your body extracts energy, stores fat, and regulates appetite. Dr. Myhill often says that your gut microbiome behaves more like an endocrine organ than a digestive accessory. It produces hormones, neurotransmitters, and signaling molecules that influence virtually every system in the body. When this internal ecosystem thrives, so do you. When it collapses, the consequences ripple through your metabolism like shockwaves. Each species of bacteria in your gut performs unique biochemical tasks. Beneficial microbes like a bifidobacteria of lactobacillus and Akkermansia mucinifera break down dietary fibers into short-chain fatty acids. It's a C-phase such as butyrate, propionate, and acetate. These are CFAs are not only fuel for the gut lining, but also powerful metabolic messengers. Butyrate, for instance, strengthens the intestinal barrier, reduces inflammation, and improves insulin sensitivity. Propionate influences satiety hormones like PYY and GLP-1, helping regulate appetite and blood sugar control. Acetate can even cross into the brain, signaling fullness and stabilizing mood. When the microbiome is balanced and diverse, these metabolites act in harmony to promote metabolic efficiency. Your cells become better at using glucose, your mitochondria generate energy smoothly, and your body switches easily between burning carbohydrates and fats for fuel. You feel stable, energized, and mentally clear. This is what a metabolically flexible body feels like, one where the gut hormones and brain communicate effortlessly. But when the microbiome becomes imbalanced, what scientists call dysbiosis, this elegant system begins to malfunction. Dysbiosis typically arises from antibiotic overuse, a processed low-fiber diet, excessive sugar, or chronic stress. Harmful bacteria and yeast start to dominate, crowding out the beneficial species that maintain order. These pathogenic microbes produce toxins and inflammatory molecules such as lipopolysaccharides, LPS, that damage the gut lining and leak into the bloodstream. The result is low-grade, chronic inflammation that disrupts insulin signaling and forces the body into fat storage mode. In this inflamed state, your appetite hormones become confused. Ghrelin, the hunger signal, spikes erratically, while leptin, the hormone that tells your brain you're full, becomes less effective. The brain interprets this miscommunication as starvation, driving overeating even when energy stores are abundant. Meanwhile, elevated insulin levels block fat burning, ensuring that excess calories are locked away in fat tissue instead of being used for fuel. Dr. Myhill describes this as the body being stuck in storage mode, where every signal pushes you toward conserving energy rather than spending it. The consequences extend beyond metabolism. Dysbiosis affects neurotransmitter production, most notably serotonin and dopamine, which influence motivation, cravings, and emotional regulation. A disrupted microbiome can lead to low mood, brain fog, and erratic energy, which further drives comfort eating and poor food choices. This is why the gut is often called the second brain, because its microbial activity directly shapes behavior, appetite, and even willpower. Dr. Myhill's approach emphasizes that restoring the microbiome isn't about chasing a single probiotic or avoiding a few foods. It's about re-establishing microbial balance through the right environmental conditions: real food, restorative sleep, sunlight, and movement. When you nourish beneficial microbes, they in turn nourish you. For instance, Akkermansia mucinifera thrives on polyphenols found in foods like pomegranate, green tea, and berries, and this bacterium helps thicken the gut mucus layer, preventing leaky gut and inflammation. A bifidobacteria flourish on prebiotic fibers from root vegetables, flax seeds, and resistant starches, producing bitterate to power the gut lining and keep immune responses calm. This microbial symbiosis is the biological basis for natural weight control. You don't need to count calories when your microbiome is functioning properly, because your gut bacteria already regulate how much energy you absorb, how much fat you store, and how satisfied you feel after meals. The gut literally determines how efficiently food is converted into energy versus stored as fat. Studies now show that people with diverse microbiomes have higher resting metabolic rates and low risk of obesity, independent of calorie intake. When the microbiome is healthy, the body becomes self-regulating. Hunger normalizes, energy stabilizes, and fat begins to melt away naturally because the system is working as it was designed to. Healing the gut microbiome is not a diet or a short-term fix. It's a reset of your body's internal control center, the switch that determines whether your metabolism is in chaos or in balance. When the gut falls out of balance, the hormonal system quickly follows. Myhill often stresses that the endocrine and digestive systems are inseparable. What happens in the gut directly influences how hormones are made, activated, and regulated. This is because the gut microbiome isn't just involved in digestion. It's also a chemical factory producing signaling molecules that speak directly to glands like the thyroid, adrenals, and pancreas. When the microbiome becomes disrupted, this delicate hormonal network unravels, setting the stage for weight gain, fatigue, and metabolic breakdown. One of the first hormones to go awry in this process is insulin. Chronic inflammation from a leaky or imbalanced gut interferes with how cells respond to insulin's message. Under normal conditions, insulin acts like a key, unlocking the cell membrane so glucose can enter and be used for energy. But inflammation damages these receptors, so the key no longer fits. The body compensates by producing more insulin to force glucose inside the cells. Over time, this leads to insulin resistance, a condition in which blood sugar remains elevated despite high insulin levels. Excess insulin traps the body in fat storage mode, especially around the abdomen, and prevents stored fat from being used for energy. Myhill calls this metabolic lock-in, a state where your body keeps storing energy it can no longer access. At the same time, chronic gut inflammation activates the body's stress response. The brain perceives internal inflammation as a form of danger, prompting the adrenal glands to release cortisol. In short bursts, cortisol is useful. It helps mobilize energy and reduce acute inflammation. But when cortisol remains chronically elevated, it becomes destructive. It breaks down muscle tissue to release glucose, raises blood sugar, and further increases insulin levels. High cortisol also suppresses thyroid activity and weakens the gut lining, worsening the very inflammation that triggered it in the first place. The result is a self-perpetuating cycle. Inflammation drives cortisol, cortisol drives more inflammation, and metabolism slows to a crawl. Another key player disrupted by gut imbalance is leptin, the hormone responsible for signaling satiety and regulating long-term energy balance. In a healthy system, leptin levels rise after eating, telling the brain that energy stores are sufficient and that it's time to stop eating. But inflammation from a damaged gut can cause leptin resistance. The brain stops receiving leptin signal, so it mistakenly believes the body is starving, even when fat stores are abundant. This leads to persistent hunger, constant snacking, and a sense that willpower alone can't control appetite. Dr. Myhill explains that this isn't a failure of discipline. It's biology reacting to an internal imbalance. Gut dysbiosis also has a direct impact on thyroid function. The thyroid gland depends on key nutrients like iodine, selenium, and zinc, which must be properly absorbed through a healthy gut. When digestion is compromised, nutrient absorption declines and thyroid hormone production suffers. Furthermore, around 20% of the inactive thyroid hormone T4 is converted to its active form T3 by gut bacteria. When the microbiome is imbalanced, this conversion process slows down, leaving the body with less active thyroid hormone, a direct hit to metabolic rate. The outcome is classic cold intolerance, weight gain, brain fog, and low energy, all stemming from poor gut health rather than a primary thyroid defect. Hormonal disruption extends even further into estrogen metabolism. The gut contains a specialized group of bacteria known as the estrobolome, which helps metabolize and recycle estrogens. When this microbial population is disturbed, excess estrogen may recirculate in the body, contributing to symptoms like bloating, water retention, and fat accumulation around the hips and thighs. High estrogen levels relative to progesterone also promote insulin resistance, compounding the metabolic burden. Dr. Myhill often notes that this estrogen dominance is one reason many women struggle to lose weight despite eating well. The gut is recycling hormones that should have been cleared. When viewed together, these hormonal imbalances paint a clear picture of how gut dysfunction drives fat storage. High insulin prevents fat burning. High cortisol keeps the body in survival mode. Low thyroid slows calorie expenditure, and disrupted estrogen balance encourages fat accumulation. Each hormone amplifies the effects of the others, and the common denominator is inflammation and dysbiosis in the gut. The encouraging part is that this system is reversible. Healing the gut naturally restores hormonal harmony without drugs or strict diets. As inflammation cools and the microbiome recovers, insulin sensitivity improves, cortisol levels normalize, leptin signaling returns, and thyroid conversion accelerates. Appetite stabilizes, cravings diminish, and mood lifts because neurotransmitters like serotonin and GABA are again produced in the gut in proper amounts. Fat burning resumes not through deprivation, but through biological alignment. This is what Dr. Myhill calls metabolic recovery, the body's innate ability to return to balance once the gut is repaired and the inflammatory signals have been silenced. The process of reducing inflammation and restoring metabolic balance begins with healing the gut barrier, the thin, intelligent membrane that separates your inner world from the outside environment. When this barrier becomes inflamed and porous, it allows foreign particles to leak into the bloodstream, triggering immune overactivation and widespread inflammation. Myhill emphasizes that the key to reversing this lies not in extreme detoxes or fasting regimens, but in restoring biological order. The body knows how to heal when it's given the right tools, nutrients, rest, and removal of the substances that cause the damage in the first place. The first step is to remove the triggers that perpetuate inflammation. Modern diets are filled with foods that constantly irritate the gut lining. Sugar, gluten, and industrial seed oils are among the most damaging. Sugar feeds harmful gut bacteria and yeast, leading to dysbiosis and increased production of endotoxins. Gluten, found in wheat and related grains, can loosen the tight junctions between intestinal cells, allowing unwanted molecules to pass through. Seed oils, like soybean, corn, and sunflower oil are high in omega-6 fatty acids that promote inflammation when consumed in excess. These foods act like sandpaper on the gut wall, eroding its integrity day after day. Removing them gives the intestinal cells a chance to regenerate. Once these inflammatory foods are eliminated, the focus shifts to nourishment, providing the raw materials needed for repair. Nutrient-dense, anti-inflammatory foods are the cornerstone of gut healing. Omega-3 fatty acids from wild-caught fish, flax seeds, and chia seeds help modulate the immune system and reduce pro-inflammatory cytokines. Polyphenol-rich foods like berries, green tea, turmeric, and olive oil feed beneficial microbes that produce protective compounds. Fermented foods such as sauerkraut, kefir, kimchi, and miso introduce living bacteria that help re-establish microbial diversity. Dr. Myhill often highlights that the goal isn't just to suppress inflammation, but to create an internal environment where healing naturally takes over. Certain key nutrients play a particularly vital role in rebuilding the gut barrier. Zinc is one of the most essential as it supports cell division and repair of the intestinal lining. Deficiency in zinc is common due to soil depletion and poor absorption, and supplementation can dramatically accelerate mucosal healing. L-glutamine, an amino acid, serves as the primary fuel for the cells lining the gut, the enterocytes. When the gut is inflamed, these cells are starved of energy and begin to atrophy. Glutamine restores their vitality and strengthens the barrier. Butyrate, a short-chain fatty acid produced by beneficial bacteria when they ferment fiber, is another crucial player. It nourishes the colon cells, tightens junctions, and acts as a natural anti-inflammatory compound within the gut. For many, restoring butyrate production through diet and prebiotic fibers is a turning point in recovery. As the gut lining begins to heal, the immune system no longer needs to remain on high alert. The constant stream of inflammatory signals quiets down, freeing the body's energy for repair, detoxification, and proper metabolic function. Mitochondria, the cell's powerhouses, thrive in this calmer environment, producing more ATP and reducing oxidative stress. This is why people often experience a sudden surge of energy, clearer thinking, and better sleep once their gut inflammation subsides. The immune system, no longer fighting internal fires, begins to operate with precision rather than panic. It's also important to address lifestyle factors that either promote or hinder gut repair. Chronic stress, for example, raises cortisol levels that thin the gut lining and suppress immune resilience. Practicing relaxation techniques, time in nature, and adequate sleep restores the body's circadian rhythm, which governs intestinal regeneration. Movement, not excessive exercise, but gentle activity like walking or yoga, improves circulation to the gut and supports lymphatic drainage. These habits aren't just supportive, they are integral to re-establishing normal gut physiology. Dr. Myhill describes gut healing as the process of reintroducing order where chaos once ruled. It's about working with biology, not against it. Every step, from removing inflammatory triggers to nourishing the microbiome, helps the gut regain its selective intelligence, allowing nutrients in and keeping toxins out. When that barrier is restored, inflammation drops, hormones rebalance, and metabolism naturally begins to function as it should. Energy returns because the body is no longer locked in a defensive state. This is not a superficial detox or temporary fix. It's the reawakening of the body's self-regulating capacity, a quiet, steady recovery of the natural rhythm that sustains life and lasting health. When inflammation calms and the gut ecosystem returns to balance, the mitochondria finally have the conditions they need to thrive. Myhill often describes the mitochondria as the engine room of every cell, the microscopic power stations that convert food and oxygen into ATP, the molecule that drives all biological activity. When the gut is inflamed or leaky, these energy factories are under siege. Toxins and inflammatory cytokines flood the bloodstream, disrupting mitochondrial membranes and forcing them into a defensive, low output mode. This is why people with gut dysfunction often feel chronically tired, foggy, and metabolically stuck. Healing the gut switches the mitochondria back from survival to performance mode. As the microbiome recovers, beneficial bacteria begin producing metabolites that directly enhance mitochondrial function. Short-chain fatty acids like butyrate and propionate act as clean, burning fuels for colon cells and also influence mitochondrial biogenesis, the process of creating new mitochondria. Polyphenol metabolites from foods like green tea, berries, and olive oil activate pathways such as AMPK and PGC110, signaling the body to increase energy production and fat oxidation. The gut, in essence, becomes a metabolic power source rather than a drain. Healthy microbes also regulate blood sugar more efficiently, stabilizing energy levels throughout the day. This means fewer spikes and crashes, reduced cravings, and a steady release of energy that supports focus, stamina, and ablutional stability. When blood sugar is stable, insulin levels drop, and the body gains access to its stored fat reserves. This is the crucial turning point, where the body transitions from storing fat to burning it for fuel. The mitochondria in liver cells become more efficient at oxidizing fatty acids, producing abundant ATP without generating excessive oxidative stress. This process, known as metabolic flexibility, allows the body to switch seamlessly between carbohydrate and fat metabolism depending on availability. Dr. Myhill often points out that this is what sustainable weight loss truly means, not forcing the body into a calorie deficit, but restoring its ability to burn energy cleanly and efficiently. Supporting mitochondrial recovery requires specific lifestyle and nutritional strategies that align with how human biology evolved to function. Nutrient-dense foods are the foundation. The mitochondria rely on a wide array of cofactors to operate: magnesium, CoQ10, carnitine, B vitamins, and antioxidants like alpha-lipoic acid. These nutrients are found in abundance in real, unprocessed foods, grass-fed meats, wild fish, eggs, leafy greens, nuts, seeds, and colorful vegetables. Processed foods, on the other hand, are largely devoid of these cofactors and contain additives that burden the liver and digestive system, further impairing mitochondrial performance. Intermittent fasting is another powerful tool in restoring metabolic rhythm. Periods of fasting give the digestive system time to repair and allow mitochondria to undergo a process called mitophagy, the removal of damaged mitochondria and replacement with new, efficient ones. This renewal improves energy output and resilience. Contrary to the old idea that eating small meals all day stokes metabolism, research now shows that spacing meals and giving the body time to reset enhances fat burning capacity and insulin sensitivity. Dr. Myhill explains that fasting doesn't slow metabolism, it restores metabolic intelligence. Sleep is equally vital. During deep sleep, the body shifts into repair mode, producing growth hormone and restoring mitochondrial DNA. Chronic sleep deprivation raises cortisol and blood sugar, both of which suppress mitochondrial activity. Creating consistent sleep patterns, avoiding screens before bed, and supporting the circadian rhythm with morning sunlight are small habits that have profound metabolic effects. Movement completes the picture. Oxygen is the final ingredient in the energy equation, and moderate rhythmic exercise enhances mitochondrial efficiency by improving oxygen delivery and circulation. Walking, cycling, and resistance training all signal the body to build new mitochondria. Exercise also stimulates the lymphatic system, aiding detoxification and reducing inflammation. The goal isn't punishing workouts, but consistent movement that oxygenates the tissues and supports cellular energy flow. As the mitochondria regenerate and the gut remains stable, a remarkable shift occurs. Hunger normalizes, mood steadies, and energy feels abundant rather than fleeting. The body stops hoarding calories because it finally trusts that energy is available on demand. Weight loss becomes effortless, not because of restriction, but because biology is once again working in harmony. In this state, every cell is fueled, every organ communicates clearly, and energy is generated rather than stolen by inflammation. Dr. Myhill's message is that true metabolic health comes from restoration, not punishment. When you heal the gut and nourish the mitochondria, the body naturally finds equilibrium. Energy flows freely, hormones balance, and fat is used as fuel rather than storage. Sustainable weight loss, in this context, is not the goal, but the inevitable result of a body that's functioning as nature intended. The pursuit of lasting weight loss has been trapped in the wrong paradigm for decades. Counting calories, over-exercising, or following restrictive diets might produce short-term changes, but they never address the biological roots of weight gain. Dr. Myhill's message cuts through this noise with refreshing clarity. Sustainable health and metabolic balance begin in the gut. The gut isn't just a digestive tube, it's the command center for immunity, hormones, and energy production. When it's inflamed and damaged, every system suffers. When it's healed and nourished, the entire body transforms, restoring the microbiome and sealing a leaky gut reduce inflammation at its source. The immune system no longer wastes energy fighting internal toxins, and the mitochondria can focus on producing clean energy rather than managing damage. As inflammation subsides, hormones like insulin, cortisol, and leptin begin to work in harmony. The brain receives accurate signals of hunger and fullness. Thyroid hormones are properly activated, and estrogen is metabolized efficiently. These shifts make fat loss a natural byproduct of healing rather than a forced effort. The body is no longer at war with itself. This approach is not about discipline or deprivation. It's about alignment. When the gut is balanced, metabolism becomes self-regulating. You don't need to fight cravings because your brain and gut are speaking the same language. You don't need to restrict calories because your body has regained access to its own stored energy. You don't need endless supplements or diet fads because the microbiome is producing the very compounds, short-chain fatty acids, neurotransmitters, and antioxidants that support vitality and mood stability. Weight stability in this context is simply the physical expression of internal order. The foundation of this order is built through simple, consistent habits. Whole, unprocessed foods are the cornerstone vegetables, fiber-rich plants, quality proteins, and healthy fats that feed beneficial bacteria and provide the raw materials for repair. Diversity is essential. A variety of fibers from vegetables, legumes, and resistant starches helps cultivate a wide range of microbes that protect the gut lining and regulate metabolism. Nature itself becomes medicine. Polyphenols from colorful fruits, omega-3s from wild fish, and live cultures from fermented foods all work synergistically to reinforce gut resilience. Sunlight, too, is an overlooked but critical factor. Exposure to natural light regulates circadian rhythm, influences melatonin and cortisol balance, and even affects the gut microbiome's daily cycles. Myhill often points out that modern indoor living has severed us from the natural environmental cues our biology depends on. Reconnecting with natural rhythms through sunlight in the morning and darkness at night allows the gut and mitochondria to operate in synchrony. Stress management is equally important, as chronic stress directly weakens the gut barrier. Practices such as deep breathing, meditation, prayer, or time in nature are not luxuries. They are biological necessities. They activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the body's rest and digest mode, which promotes nutrient absorption and immune balance. Even a few minutes of calm breathing each day can lower cortisol and help the gut repair itself more effectively. Movement is the other pillar of lifelong metabolic health. It doesn't have to mean intense workouts. Walking after meals improves blood sugar control and digestion. Strength training builds muscle, which increases mitochondrial density and improves insulin sensitivity. Gentle practices like yoga or Tai Chi reduce inflammation and stimulate vagal tone, strengthening the communication between the gut and brain. Movement is medicine for both body and mind, reinforcing the connection between energy expenditure and energy production. The real hack for lifelong weight stability isn't hidden in supplements, diets, or detoxes. It's in restoring the biological systems that already know how to maintain balance. By focusing on gut integrity, microbial diversity, and mitochondrial vitality, you allow your body to self-regulate. Energy becomes steady, mood stabilizes, sleep deepens, and fat loss happens naturally. Health becomes effortless because it is built on physiology, not willpower. Dr. Myhill's message is ultimately one of empowerment. You are not broken, and your metabolism is not defective. It's simply responding to an inflamed, overburdened system. By healing your gut, you're reclaiming your body's natural intelligence. You're not just losing weight, you're rebuilding resilience, clarity, and vitality from the inside out. Every meal, every breath, every step in the sun contributes to the quiet reordering of your biology. This is the path not only to lifelong weight stability, but to a state of health where energy feels abundant, the mind is clear, and disease has little room to take hold.